Hello and welcome to the Michael Mama Show, Ancient Secrets Revealed. We're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. So, yesterday, I think most everyone knows that the U.S. bombed several of those nuclear sites in Iran. And it's interesting because the subject of this podcast didn't change by virtue of that, because this is what we wanted to talk about, because the whole thing with Iran's been going on, between Iran and Israel and that. But it became even more acute, I think, in everybody's awareness by virtue of the bombing. When we teach spiritual knowledge, one thing I've noticed is that, people will hear it, oh yeah, that's cool, and oh, I get that, and everything. But when we get into the weeds, when we get into the thick of things with life, there's a tendency to forget all of that, kind of just spin out into whatever direction we do, and we're all guilty of that. I'm guilty of that world. It's just human that, when the emotions get stirred, we can get upset. But so I always say the measure of a person isn't about whether or not that ever happens. Merely the measure of a person's can they get back into balance, and how long does it take? So we want to remember the big picture here with respect to what's going on, not just in Iran and Israel, but the whole world. And that is that there's a phase transition. I'd like to have talked about that, podcast about it, talked about it in lectures. And there's so much in the Vedic literature, and I went through all the details of justifying the reality of it in other podcasts. But we're going through a phase transition from an age of real darkness to a golden age, an age of peace, abundance, prosperity, happiness. And there's always a moment of transition there. The phase transition, so you have water. We use the analogy of water getting cooler and cooler, and then it transitions in a moment, and then right at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, transitions into ice. And interestingly enough, and it's just basic chemistry, right in that moment of transition, right at 32 degrees or 0 degrees centigrade, right at that moment of transition, turbulence, chaos, and then all of a sudden it settles down and you have ice, which is a more coherent state. It's crystalline lattice, That is what is going on now, and right now we're in that turbulent time, and that's why we see so much unrest in the world. I mean, there was the thing between Pakistan and India, and I guess what was it, Scotty? Congo and Rwanda, or where?
Yeah, supposedly that's been going on for a while.
Yeah, evidently, I understand that got resolved or settled, some agreement. But at any rate, and then the conflicts, the tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and of course there's China and the United States, and there's tensions everywhere. And then, of course, yesterday, the B-2 bombers. See, there were these nuclear power plants in Iran, and they're several hundred feet underground, and the Israelis don't have anything that can penetrate that deeply to destroy those. And the threats were, everybody, I think, would know that Iran has, for decades now, been saying that they want to destroy Israel, wipe them off the face of the earth. They're the little Satan, and the United States is the big Satan. And some say that, if somebody is threatening over and over again to kill you, you do well to believe them. But then the question becomes, okay, so now it appears that they were right on the verge of having a nuclear weapon. They also have the missiles to deliver those on a warhead to Israel, certainly. And they've been threatening to do that very thing for decades. So the question becomes, what do? If you have the capability of taking out those nuclear facilities, do you do it? Or and I mean, they've been trying to negotiate, but do you continue to try to negotiate? Even though intelligence can see that, and is the intelligence right? We all know about the things of weapons of mass destruction with Iraq, but they never had. We will never know for sure what would have happened if they didn't bomb those nuclear facilities. We'll never know. But if we could know, and if we did know, and if we didn't bomb, and then all of a sudden millions of people get wiped out with the nuclear explosion in Tel Aviv or whatever, then we'd know, and then we would, I would think we'd say, gee, we should have taken out those nuclear power plants. But what really interests me, fascinating, maybe a better word, the convictions are so strong. And that's everywhere. It's the phase transition. Everything is so turbulent. People are all in an uproar. So the convictions are so strong. How could he bomb Iran? How could he do that? And on the other hand, thank God he did it. He saved millions of lives, innocent people. And everybody seems to know that they have 20/20 hindsight, 20/20 foresight, know what would happen either way. If they bombed or not, they would know before it. And they couldn't know. So we're all guessing, really. We're taking our best guesses. But I think we do well to ask ourselves if we had a neighbor that was well armed and threatening to come over and shoot you and your family over and over again, and you see them loading their gun, I don't know, what would you do? Now, it doesn't, well, one thing is that, the allies or alleged allies of Iran haven't really turned out to be allies. You have North Korea. Now, I never thought North Korea was an ally of Iran. North Korea was making money selling them nuclear things so they could build nuclear bombs and stuff. They were selling it to them. They were making money off of them. That's it. They had no particular affinity for Iran. China, same way, really. They were getting oil from Iran. Russia, well, there's that whole thing. What is it? The enemies of my enemy are my friend. And so there was certainly, obviously, polarization between Iran and the United States. And if you call them enemies or call them whatever you want, but let's use the word enemies, give me some freedom there. If you don't like the word enemies, forgive me. But we can see where Russia, China, North Korea also had that component to any allegiances that they had with Iran. But it's really interesting that once this started and once Iran started getting devastated, you're not hearing anything from them they're cutting loose because it doesn't serve their purpose anymore to have an allegiance to Iran. And we'll see what happens again. But at this point in time, they're all silent. Syria, all the different nations, nobody's stepping up. And Iran was certainly, I guess, abandoned, if they're even thinking about that, in the state of chaos their country is in. My big concern, and honestly, my biggest concern, because I don't think it's going to result in a nuclear war or anything like that. My biggest concern right now is for the Iranian people. They're good people. What is it? 83 million, I think, is the population of Iran. I could have that wrong. And thank God so far, they have taken out some of the infrastructure, but they haven't devastated the infrastructure. And I hope they don't. I hope there's a peaceful settling down, if it be it a transition or whatever. We want peace, and we want the people of Iran. They're good people everywhere. People are good. By and large, people are good. And I certainly hope it doesn't come to that, starting to target their infrastructure. People talk about, all these different lines in the sand that are arbitrary, like the border between the United States and Mexico, for example. But, just basic Vastu principles. Close your southern borders, your southern boundaries. You can, in Vastu, there are certain ways it can be done, but it's very delicate. It's got to be done just right. Otherwise, the southern direction is death. And so the southern border to the United States opened, and whether or not we're pro, having those people come in or not, most definitely we can't argue that it's created tremendous chaos, financial burden, emotional burden, conflicts, fentanyl, on and on. Same thing happened with Tibet, when they closed the northern border. The only entry was from the south, and so Tibet's been having a hard time. But I didn't mean to digress with respect to all of that. But keep your eye on the ball. Remember the big picture. That's the whole point, really, of this podcast. We are witnessing now a phase transition. And this is very rare. If we can say it this way, it's very rare to have the opportunity, if we can say it that way, to witness the transition into Sat Yuga from Kali Yuga. Very rare. And we are witnessing it. But we have to keep our eye on the ball. And what I mean by that is the big picture. This is the big picture. Now, if you look at the timing based on Jyotish and all of that, of this whole thing, I don't think the transition is, the timing is correct for there to be a big nuclear holocaust and nuclear war and Armageddon. We don't know. It could happen, but I don't think it's at all likely. I think it's far more likely that what's going to happen is things are going to settle down. And the golden age will then emerge over the next couple of years. Really, it'll start to really move better, more and more forward. I have bigger concern with Putin in Ukraine and his relationship with Europe, even Germany. He was even speaking kind of harshly towards Germany. Basically saying, you better not mess with us, you better not mess with what we're doing in Ukraine, or you'll be sorry, kind of a thing, But boy, we become so attached to our perspectives, and we take these extremist stances, you know, and this thing about, you know, with the enemy of my enemies, my friend, there's also this thing, even politically, even between Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans are having a heyday now, we know that. And the Democrats, really, they're understandably, I mean, they have their party, they want their party to, you know, have power and all that, I get it. But the way to do it, the way they are doing it, is to oppose the Republicans, attack from every angle. And I'm not saying all the Democrats, but some of the Democrats will spin it however they have to make the Republicans look as bad as they can and stir up fear and paranoia and or high moral ground. You know, how can we do this or that? Whatever they need to do. And if there's one thing that we have witnessed over and over and over again throughout history, it's how easy it is to manipulate the minds of the masses. People go to war in the name of some politician and their convictions and their viewpoints. How can that possibly be? But it's the way it works. And they become masterful at it. And right now, understandable, but the Democrats, they need to somehow get a foothold and traction on the management, if you want to, we can use that word, of the minds of the people to oppose the Republicans. Right or wrong, I'm not talking right or wrong here. Leave me out of that. I don't want to get into the weeds with all that. But all I'm saying is that's what's going on. Open your eyes. That's what's going on. Maybe they're right. I don't have an opinion on that. Or I should say, I'm not going to voice my opinion on that because it's not relevant. But just realize that we comprise the masses. We are of the masses. We are people. And history has shown how easily that mentality, that mass mentality can be manipulated. Just like with Hitler and the Nazis. Germans, by and large, they're smart people. How could that happen? How could that happen to these incredibly smart people? So many of them, so brilliant. But it did. Anything else, Scotty?
No, I think you said it.
We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I have my hunches. I think it's going to be better than fine. And I don't think we're going to have a big, huge nuclear war. I really don't. And that's really all I have to say for this week.